Hey fellas, and we're back. It's another Tom video, but this time I got my house coat, I got my beer in hand. So you know what that means? It means it's an impressions video. And today we got a wonderful Italian platformer. So with that, I got an Italian beer, Ignusa, from Sardinia, aka Sardinia for all you foreigners out there. Stranieri, we call them. But anyway, let's give it a try. One of my favorite beers actually in Italy. But anyways, today we're going to be talking about Tour de Pizza's debut game known as Pizza Tower. And my fellas, if you are an aficionado or you love platformers, then you gotta stay tuned, because the game we're going to talk about, it is going to be whack. Now, the premise and narrative for Pizza Tower is going to be admittedly short because it's incredibly simple, and my god, is it incredibly goofy, and sets the stage for what the type of game Pizza Tower is trying to be. So in short, you play the role of Peppino, a struggling pizzaiolo who one day is threatened with the horrible pizza face of destroying his humble pizzeria. And so with his wits and the help of Gustavo and his mouse, they go on a journey to get to the top of the pizza tower and defeat the evil pizza face. Like I said, fellas, it is very simplistic, and so with that, we're gonna leave the narrative and really more of the characters out of the way for now, because we gotta talk about the gameplay, and it is gonna be a wild one. To put the gameplay down to the simplest terms, the game is made up of about 20 levels with various boss fights in between them. In order to get to the boss fights, you'll have to collect toppings that you'll find in individual levels that you can use to buy the door to defeat the boss. Now in the levels, the main gameplay gimmick is that you use your right trigger to rush and build up a dash up to ridiculous amounts of speed. The faster you go, the more damage you're going to do to enemies, to the point that they will comically scream when you get near them. But it also poses a challenge in itself. The faster you go, the better you have to be at the game to be able to react to particular things in the environment that can stop you right in your tracks, or even sometimes hurt Peppino. And while there aren't lives like in a traditional platformer, the more you get hurt, the more the score is gonna suck at the end of the level. Because in Pizza Tower, it has a Devil May Cry pizza rating system, and you want to get the best ratings that you can, of course, to get that elusive P rank. As you're collecting toppings and beating enemies by either taking a huge bite out of them or ramming them at ludicrous speed, you'll be on the lookout for secrets, which are these little short levels where you have to master a certain mechanic to get through them. There's also a block man known as Jerome, who's the janitor of the Pizza Tower, that if you take him to a door with his nice beautiful face on it, then you get the level's secret item that really helps with your score at the end. And sure, that's playing through the level, but how you end a level, now that's an entirely different thing. But how you finish a level isn't the same as it is in your typical platformers, because you'll reach what we'll say is the end of the level, and you'll have a huge purple block that you need to destroy. And when that happens, oh boy fellas, you need to immediately go back the way you came, and it's a mad dash through the entire level, this time in reverse, to make it out before Pizza Face gets ya, in a moment that we like to call pizza time. How this really ends up working is because the levels aren't really that long, but just long enough that you remember them, but not so well that with the heightened soundtrack and the time limit on your ass that you're trying to make it all the way back to the end while remembering all the hazards in the way. So it creates this tension that it's like, I don't remember how it goes, so we gotta make it all the way back before the pizza face gets us. It's this wonderful level of tension that grips you to the finish line, and while the normal gameplay is already a treat, oh boy, this mad dash is just a wonderful cherry on top that gets your blood pumping in all the right ways. Now of course, it's not just that, because in every single level there's also a neat mechanic or gimmick added to the level that makes each level just a bit different. It could be hopping into a suit of armor and sliding your way across a level to beat that stupid rat, or hopping on a hot dog in the western level as if it were a bucking bronco to blast through some doors. Some of my favorites are sometimes switching to Gustavo and Brick, which are the smaller Italian man and his comically large rat that have their own unique move set to do things like deliver pizza to Italian gnomes, or sometimes when you're in the pig city, bail Peppino out of jail. And my favorite one is in a factory where you have to sneak around and destroy the cameras quickly, because if you don't, then a monster's gonna run at you at light speed as quickly as it can towards you, and if it catches you, it comes right up to the screen and gives you a jump scare that honestly makes me laugh my ass off every single time. It's so friggin' funny. But all in all, the gameplay for Pizza Tower is practically flawless in my opinion, since it has an incredibly wonderful moveset that never gets tiring. With the amount of levels and gimmicks thrown your way, it makes it all just so incredibly fresh. I'm not sure if I ever said it before, but my favorite types of platformers are the ones that I like to say are as wide as a puddle but as deep as an ocean, in the sense that the moveset for the game really isn't that vast, but you tack on different elements to it and it becomes this incredible system that feels like you really can do anything in the game. And to me, Pizza Tower is a game like that. Peppino might not have a whole lot of moves, but with the variety that is included in level gimmicks and just in the mechanics of momentum and speed, you got a lot of cool stuff that you can play around with that honestly, I'm gonna be real with you fellas, I'm frankly not quite good enough to do, but I love to see it in videos of them just blasting through levels at light speed that makes you go, oh my god, ain't no way that I'm ever gonna do that. Now with that out of the way fellas, it's time to talk about the narrative, and while there really kind of isn't a narrative, Pizza Tower has a collection of wonderful goofy characters that are going to make you laugh and smile, so let's talk about them for a sec. Of course, to start, there's the ever wonderful Peppino, who's the wonderfully portly Italian man that we all play through the game, and while he doesn't really say much, there's so much that is said in his actions and in his movements. He's always got this mix of being terrified and gripped with anxiety, followed by being so comically angry, and it frequently goes between the two that it just makes you laugh all the time. It could be basic things like Peppino going through a door for the first time and giving you that worried look, or just generally panicking when the timer's about to go down in pizza time. But then at other times when he's mad, it's so over the top pissed off where in his boss fights, before the final punch, he'll do like this slow-mo nasty punch you'll ever see, which feels like such a cathartic release after the scream at the beginning of boss levels, so you gotta experience. Another trait of Peppino that I love are the taunts and poses that he gets himself into that are many really just kind of goofy references to other media. My favorite being the pose that Daffy Duck in Azutsu's does, or Robotnik from Sonic holding the diploma with his eyes crossed and he's got his little goofy diploma hat. Onto other characters, there's also Gustavo, who's the smaller pizzaiolo with wonderful little beady eyes that is usually found at the end of the levels during pizza time, guiding Peppino to the end of the levels, and is just generally a jolly looking man. But his trusty rat Brick is the only one that can annoy him, and you'll see them both frequently in the hub worlds either together or engaging in tomfoolery, like a classic cartoonish brawl where they're just going and the enemies you fight as well have just as much character and are so wonderfully realized in this goofy little world. Like pieces of cheese slime that you don't really pose a danger for, or the ever worried fork knights that if you run at them at light speed, they scream before getting pulverized by Peppino's portly gait. This of course also extends to the bosses, where you got a giant sham artist and Pepperman who is quite literally a giant bell pepper. But I have to say my favorite boss in the entire game, who's also kind of a friend of Peppino and kind of an enemy, is the Noise, which if you are familiar with 90s fast food mascots, you would know him to be the goofy copy of Domino's Pizza's The Noid. Of course fellas, there are many more goofy little characters and enemies to find in Pizza Tower, so I don't really want to spoil them. But with that, let's talk about Pizza Tower's amazing presentation, because man oh man, I know I always talk about this stuff and I always go, man, every game's got great presentation, but you know, maybe I just got good, got good taste, but I just gotta say, this time in Pizza Tower, ooh, it is just wonderful. To start, as usual, we're going to take a look at the visuals of Pizza Tower because the soundtrack is its own beast that we'll tackle soon. If you're the kind of goon to enjoy that sort of flawed animation from the 90s, then man oh man, you're gonna feel right at home watching Peppino's slightly twitchy idols go to wonderfully exaggerated biting, kicking, and of course dashing at well over 100 miles per hour. To the sights of Pizzards, that is shorts for Pizza Wizards, eyes popping out of their heads and just bewilderment at the speed of Peppino. It's like Ren and Stimpy or Cow and Chicken in that sort of wonderful crudeness or grotesqueness where everything is so hyper expressive and just beautifully harsh. It's the sort of thing that should be a bad sign to most people, but if you can jive with it, man, it's friggin' great. Personally, I always love those kinds of characters animation where everyone is just kind of beautifully schlubby and kind of ugly, and you can see it even more in the level title cards as well as in the boss fight cards where we see these disgusting hyper detailed Peppino and whatever he has to deal with. I find myself looking at a lot of these images that the game produces and just constantly smiling and laughing. And, as I've said in many videos beforehand, that if the game can make me do all of that all the damn time, then it's honestly something special for me. Even the actual animation work to it is honestly incredible. While I wouldn't call it traditionally hand-drawn, it does feel like there's a talented cartoonist putting e-pen to tablet to make some of the best animation to be found in 2023 so far. To the point that this indie studio of just a few guys honestly puts the rest of the damn industry to shame with how good the animation is. And I know it's not the craziest stuff, but the sort of joy you get from watching Peppino dashing, punching, kicking, biting other similarly animated goons is absolutely wonderful, and it easily has become one of the better lookers of this year. Now that we're done that, it's that part of the video that if you've been watching me through the years, you've been waiting for, and that is of course to talk about Pizza Tower's amazing, cool, groovy little soundtrack. So let's get into it. The soundtrack, fellas, is just as incredible, whether it goes from the lows of the pause menu theme that is there to chill you out to the visuals of pizza angels and priests floating by, to the absolutely hold on to your butt's heart pumping quality of the tracks like it's pizza time that play when you're racing all the way back to the beginning of the level in pizza time. There's a lot of groovy influences in the soundtrack, with a sound that is right out of the 90s, but it takes great care to be brought to you in a very crisp, high-definition way that a lot of other games trying to emulate that era would artificially compress. So I'm kinda glad they didn't compress it and they just left the game at this beautiful, high-definition audio quality. There's also a lot of samples used throughout the tracks that make them all that more groovy. And it honestly reminds me a lot of Jet Set Radio, one of my favorite ones being a song where it sounds like it's saying "doors stuck," and then the developers went out of the way to make a joke track where it was that Counter-Strike "doors stuck" guy. And honestly, it's just incredible. It's such a funny track to listen to. Starting off with the tracks, we're going to talk about a shorter one, but one I still really enjoy is a track that plays during the tutorial that's called Funiculi Holiday, that is like this soundtrack's perfect rendition of the classic Italian song Funiculi Funicula, which has been sang by the greats like Luciano Pavarotti, and it's just a song that is immediately recognizable, so they did this wonderful little rendition of it that just is perfect for the kind of game that it is, aka a game where you play an Italian guy, and also a game that's about being groovy, baby. Another great one is Tombstone, Arizona, that has this funeral dirge start to it that eventually ramps up to a creepy and spookier rendition of what this groovy soundtrack has to offer. What I also love about this one are the samples of revolver shots and wolves howling in the distance. It's just kind of wonderful and it puts you in that spooky mood. Now, another quality that I love about the soundtrack is that the tracks increase in intensity the closer you get to the end, because the levels themselves get even more insane. Take for instance Peppino's Sauce Machine, that is the song that starts with samples of steam whistles and pumping machinery that ramps up to great riffs while you're trying to get to dismantle the vile machinery of the pizza tower. And a perfect example of this phenomena is a track called 1000 March that plays during a level where you start off with the timer and you actually have to continually refill your timer gauge by defusing bombs in this war zone, and this track honestly feels like a song you would hear in Hotline Miami, composed by Perturbator or even Carpenter Brute, but it still has this pizza tower spin to it that ties it all the way back to all the other tracks. As per usual, fellas, with these stellar soundtracks, I think it's time to let the game speak for itself. So, let's hear it. And so fellas, we kind of get to the part of the video where it goes, do I recommend it or do I not recommend it? And man, oh man, fellas, have you been listening to me to this whole time? Have you been listening to me? Because if you have, then obviously you should know that, go and friggin' play this game right now. It's just wonderful that in a year that's looking to be packed full of great experiences and has already had great experiences so far, like in Hi-Fi Rush and Resident Evil 4 Remake, that we get another stellar piece of indie kino to the list. If you are the kind of fella that has that platformer itch from playing Wario Land all those years ago and that it hasn't been scratched since, then look no further than Pizza Tower to provide you that great experience that is going to stick with you for years to come. Honestly, fellas, it's a miracle to me when a game comes along and it gets each of its individual elements just perfectly done, where I have almost, in the case of Pizza Tower, absolutely no complaints. So fellas, it's $22 Canadian or just under 20 euros for the Eurogoons out there, and I easily recommend Pizza Tower at those price points. So I hope that if you love platformers and goofy little Italian guys ramming into light speed onto Fortnites, that you'll give it a try and enjoy it as much as I did. And there you have it, fellas. We're basically at the end of the video. If you've come all the way this far, Thank you so much for watching it, and for all the new fellas out there, hey, welcome to the show. I hope you enjoyed it. If you enjoyed this video, then go watch my backlog, and hopefully you enjoy those. And if you do enjoy those, then maybe subscribe. There might be something in it for you. But for everybody else, hey, hope you enjoyed the video. I hope you pick up Pizza Tower because it's such a cool game. And man, oh man, it's only April of 2023 and it's already been a stellar year. So, fellas, with that, give you cheers because it's only going up from here. So, this is Tomthechosen1 in Italy, drinking my Italian beer. And if you come on over, you're going to get stuff to your face till you puke. And I hope you guys have a great time. Take it easy.